Hi, I'm giving myself 12 weeks to build my own creative design studio and land my first client. I know, very ambitious, but I have a plan. But first, a little bit of context. Who am I and why am I even doing this? My name is Coin. I just turned 29 and I'm having a little bit of a quarter life crisis. Okay, that was a bit of a jarring intro, so let me explain how I got here. I've spent a lot of time overthinking, second guessing, and over indexing on the things that are practical or feel like the right direction instead of the things that are actually just the right path for me. In undergrad, I studied chemical engineering. I did consider doing a minor in visual arts, but I stayed in chemical engineering because it felt like a safe choice. And when I think back on it, I know that decision was purely fear based versus it being what I truly wanted to do. After undergrad, I worked in consulting for a few years. Again, even the decision to go into that career path was very fear based. It wasn't because I wanted to do consulting. I didn't even know what consulting was until my junior year of college. I went back to grad school to get a degree in design, specifically human centered design. A large part of why I did that degree is because it was a degree that mixed design, business, and engineering together. The year I spent focusing on just that degree alone was probably the most aligned I'd felt in my academic or professional career in a very long time. But I ended up adding an MBA on top of that. So I did end up doing a dual master's in this design program and the business school. I don't regret doing the MBA, but I will say it was a decision I made purely out of practicality than it being something that truly felt like the path for me. So now that brings me into my present day. Today I work as a product manager in a tech company. The product I work on is in a creative space, and I'm working alongside creatives. So like the designers who are building it, the customers we're building it for. But I never actually get to be creative myself on a day-to-day basis, which, are you seeing the theme? I feel like I've always been nearby, but not at the location. Now it's been 2 years since I've graduated from grad school, and I'm supposed to be living this adult life that's supposed to be the rest of my life. I think I've just spent a lot of the past 2 years questioning if the direction my life has been going in is the path I want to keep going down. And recently I decided, no, it's not. I don't want to keep going down this path. So I've seen a lot of Design My Dream Life, 365 Her content. Honestly, I do think my algorithm is trying to tell me something, and I'm listening. I'm finally listening. For me personally, I don't think I can try to change every aspect of my life at once. Like, that's just not feasible. I won't say impossible, but for me, knowing who I am, I need to be practical. Yeah, I know, I hear it. I do hear it, but at the same time, I think the only way for me to make valuable progress in this area is if I just focus on this one aspect, which is in allowing creativity to be a bigger part of my life in the way that I've always wanted it to be. So, this series is about me finding my creative voice and building a life that actually feels like mine. Okay, that's the context, but let me give some quick facts that I think might be relevant for this series as well. The first thing is I do have a full time job. It is going to be a bit of a challenge for me to balance this series, but I really want to try because if I'm saying this is important to me, then I need to put the effort towards it. And that's another reason why I'm only focusing on this one change as well. Secondly, is that about my skill level, I guess, in this. I'm not a beginner. I'm not exactly advanced or pro or anything. Back in, I want to say 2019, I taught myself Illustrator. And for a while, I was offering branding, digital illustration services, but it was mostly just like friends and family that I did anything for. And I didn't really do it for that long. I think I gave up pretty quickly. So this series, I actually want to try and try consistently. And then the last thing is that I'm based in New York City. Specifically, I live in Brooklyn. I would love to not just work on my skills, but find and grow with people who are in this city and thinking of doing the same thing. So if you're in New York and you happen to come across this video, feel free to reach out to me. Would love to build a community. Okay, now let's move on and actually talk about the series. Building a creative design studio in 12 weeks. What does that actually mean? And how am I going to do this? To start off, there's a lot of different directions that this could go in, and also that I do want it to grow into eventually. But for the purpose of this series, I'm focusing just on web design and brand design. Each week I have something planned that I want to focus on and just keep my attention on that and see it through. The first 2 weeks I want to focus on learning and relearning the basics. And to me, that means learning the different creative tools that I think would be necessary for this studio. So in week 1, I'll be focusing on Illustrator and Photoshop. Illustrator, I do know I am familiar with. Photoshop, I've opened the app, I've closed the app, I've not used the app. I typically use Illustrator for everything, even things that I know I should be using Photoshop for. So I think I'm kind of limiting myself by never learning Photoshop. If I have an idea, I don't want to be limited just because I don't know the tool. Week 2, I'll focus on Figma and either Webflow or Framer. So Webflow and Framer are 2 web design tools, and Figma is also another like UI tool that I've used. I use it at work to collaborate with designers, and I've also used it in grad school to work on projects. Then it gets a bit more interesting in week 3 and week 4. So I'm gonna call these my case study weeks. And with these case studies, I want to go through the exercise of actually building the brand design and the web design for a brand, a company, a concept. I don't know, we'll get there. But I might choose something that already exists. So I might choose a brand that exists and try to do a redesign for them, or I might just make something up and do a design for those. Those would be 2 different projects in week 3 and then another project in week 4. So week 5 and 6 is another step up. So this is when I'm actually gonna try taking on a client, but it's gonna be an unpaid client. It's just gonna be my friend. She's a writer, and I've literally been promising to help her design her portfolio for probably a year now. So I want to take her on as a client, try and work through building what her portfolio could look like, actually doing the designs for it, and hopefully implementing it on the web as well. I think this would be a great experience both for me and her. One, because she gets a free portfolio that she hopefully likes. She can tell me if she doesn't like it. I will cry if she doesn't like it, but she can be honest. 2, I think it'd be a really good experience for me to learn how it might be to work with a client. So like what would be my process? And it's kind of a low pressure way to do that since she is my friend, and I can kind of work out the kinks of what would be my process when I'm working with someone else to do this work. Week 5, I'm just gonna be focusing on the branding for her portfolio, and then week 6, I'll actually focus on the web part of it. Week 7 and 8 is when we start working on the portfolio for the studio. So just to recap, at this point, I would have had 2 conceptual projects and then an actual project with my friend. And so then I want to build my portfolio online to showcase my work, showcase the things that I've done. So at this point, we have the website. Week 9, I think I might try and do a few more smaller projects. Week 10, 11, and 12 is when I'm going to be focusing on pitching. So actually pitching myself to land my first paid client. Like I mentioned at the start of this, I want to land a client within this 12 weeks. So it's not just about building the studio up, but actually landing a paid client. There are 3 ways I'm thinking of pitching right now. The first is through Upwork. I've never used Upwork before. This is also not a sponsorship, so I have no subscribers, so who am I sponsoring to? But I want to try using Upwork to pitch myself. I have an account on there, but I've actually never used it. 2, I want to pitch, like do cold pitches. So either through socials or just different local businesses that I see and might be interested in hiring me for one of the services I offer. Those are 2 ways I'll think of pitching. And then the lastly is just in my network. I have in the past gotten people who I know who reach out to me because they know I did things like this, and they've reached out because they either wanted the service themselves or they knew someone who did. So I'm hoping in this time period as well, someone might see what I'm doing and reach out, but we'll see. Sometimes I feel like when you're in the space, things come to you. So I'm leaving myself open to that. Those are the 3 ways I'm thinking of pitching: Upwork, cold outreach, and in my network. I'm excited to have the structure. I'm excited to, regardless of what comes out of this, like make creativity a bigger part of my life like I really want it to be. So let's see how it goes. Okay, before I leave, week 1 is actually starting today. So like I mentioned, we're focusing on Illustrator and Photoshop. I'm going to be following a bunch of tutorials, try some new techniques that I've seen online, but I just have not had the chance to try. So at the end of this, I'll show you the things I end up accomplishing, what I did, how it went. Just stay tuned. So I'm actually filming this update 4 weeks later, but I did follow my week 1 plan. I created some things in Photoshop and Illustrator just like I planned, and I think that was honestly a really good starting point for me because it allowed me to dip my toes back into doing something without adding any creative pressure of being perfect or having the right idea. But since I'm also filming this 4 weeks later, some time has gone by, I've learned from my approach and I've decided to change a few things. The first change is that I decided to skip my plan for week 2, which was supposed to be on Figma and Webflow. And ultimately, after week 1, I realized I would rather spend more time working on cohesive projects that could fit in my portfolio versus just following one-off tutorials. Then on a similar note, I'm also going to be doing a lot more client projects, still unpaid. We haven't gotten to that part of the challenge, but a few of my friends are working on ideas and projects that require branding. And I thought this would be a really good opportunity to have a portfolio piece for myself, plus also propel their vision forward. Then the last change is that I decided to give myself a minimum of 2 weeks for each project. I really underestimated how much effort it would be to balance both the design work, the filming, editing, and also my regular full-time job. So I had to reassess that one for sure. Project 1 alone has taken me so long. It's for a bakery and a bar in Brooklyn. The video should be coming out soon, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, it was a lot more work than I thought it would be, and I had to make sure that I was giving myself time to create stuff that I was proud of versus just cranking them out just because. So at the time of filming this, it's currently the end of week 4, and I'm trying to keep the integrity of this challenge, but also give myself some grace because it's a lot of work, y'all. I'm not gonna lie. So I'll be wrapping up the first project this week, and the video should come out hopefully end of the week as well. Then I'll move on to project 2 with my friend, and I'll give you more details on that when we get to the update. Then I'll still be doing the writer's portfolio website. That's still a project that was there originally that I'm still keeping. Then we'll move on to my studio's branding and website. And then finally, we start pitching. So pitching has kind of been condensed to 1 week instead of the original 3. I think that should be fine. I'm hoping to have some traction from the other work that I'm doing since they're actually real project, and I'll be posting them across other socials as well. Okay, that's all for updates. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe if you want to follow along and see what happens next. Bye.